Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here on the Nerd Party Network. I'm Lee Hutchison, and Alex King and I make our way through the A24 filmography, and along the way bring you interviews with the talent involved in front of and behind the camera. In this episode, I welcome actor Bree Elrod that plays Lexi, who is reunited with her estranged husband, Mikey Saber, played by Simon Rex, after he returns home to Texas City after a 17-year absence in Sean Baker's Red Rocket. Thanks so much to Bree for joining me, and I hope you too will enjoy this interview.
I'm doing this tonight. You're probably gonna start a fight.
Where did your interest in acting begin? Because I'd read that you sort of studied law originally and then sort of transitioned into acting. What's kind of been your journey?
Well, you know, my parents are both lawyers. My mom is a law professor. My dad, who's now retired, was a lawyer. And so I kind of felt like it was just the path that I was on. I majored in political science in college. And then, but I've always been drawn to the arts. I've always been drawn to the theater. And so I found myself in college just when the auditions were posted. I went to a very small liberal arts school. And so I was afforded the opportunity to be able to do theater because it wasn't one of those schools where sometimes if you go to one of these bigger schools, you only can do that one thing and then you're locked in until the end of your time there. But here it's just this really beautiful, bubbling little mix of things at Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois. And so when auditions were posted, I always found myself like my heart and just being drawn to the audition experience. And so I had a professor there, Ivan Davidson and Liz Metz, who like pulled me over and were like, you could do this. This is something that's in you. And if you want to pursue this, this is something you could really, and I'd never thought about it before as a, always just kind of looked at it as kind of an avocation, not something to pursue professionally. But then I started to think, I can always go back to law school. Now's the time. And so I auditioned for some grad programs because I had been studying political science. So I'm like, well, I think I need training. So I got into Juilliard and then I got into NYU grad acting and I ended up going to NYU. And then I spent 3 years just, rolling around on a floor with a group of 18 people, learning about my body, learning about how I sound, learning about myself in space, scene study, improv, that kind of, experience that really kind of launched me onto the career path that I am now on.
When you were kind of doing that journey, what was sort of like maybe the film, the art, the talent that sort of inspired you?
Oh, gosh, so many performances and people, of course, Frances McDormand and Billy Crudup and people who graduated from our program, Mahershala Ali and, Ryan Bethea, Sterling K. Brown. There were just people who I even saw who had come through the program that I just admired so much. And I always like wanted to learn more about films. And this was such an exciting opportunity for me to actually get this kind of crash course into filmmaking at its very, rawest form.
We had Sterling K. Brown on this podcast before, so it feels like we're ticking off the people from your course.
Yes, Sterling, he's so great. What a guy.
One thing that caught me when I was doing sort of my research was I kind of looked on the classic IMDb and I noticed that you'd sort of like auditioned for this sort of one-woman show and it was directed by Alan Rickman. And he then kind of became your mentor. He's one of our kind of greatest talents here in the UK. What was that experience like and what was he like as a mentor?
Oh my gosh. Alan was such a beautiful human being and so benevolent, so compassionate, so nurturing of artists who were just starting. And I feel so fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with him. And yeah, like what you had read, I had just been let go from my manager. My agents were like, this isn't working. And this casting director called me and said, Alan Rickman had done a show in London. My name is Rachel Corey. And they were bringing it to New York and they wanted to know if I wanted to audition for it. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. I'd love to just go fall on my face in front of frickin' Alan Rickman. That sounds great. Sure, I'll do it, And I really worked hard on it, but I just was in such a place mentally that I was like, who cares, And I walked in and I did it. And he pulled me up to the table and we read through it a few times and he gave me some adjustments. And that was basically the beginning of a really beautiful friendship and mentorship. And then, I ended up doing that one woman show with him here in New York. And it was so awesome. My brother was like, wait a minute, let me get this straight. So when you're going to rehearsal, it's just like you and Alan Rickman. And like, yeah, pretty much. And so, he was such a beautiful artist that he really respected my process. And so he would, throughout the run be like, Bree, would you like to meet up for some spaghetti and some notes? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I want to do that. I want to do that with you. And so throughout the process, we were like growing together and learning. And then, he came to see me when I did a show where I'd written my own music, and I went to see him in many plays when he was in New York. He always called me when he was in town and we'd have dinner, and he just was just such a lovely human. And like I said, I feel so fortunate to have crossed paths with him, and I miss him. And I wish he was here to kind of see this Red Rocket journey, because I think he would be really excited about it.
Is that something you maybe see yourself doing one day, kind of being a mentor to other actors and performers out there, and kind of passing on your experiences?
I mean, all I have is my own journey, and it has certainly not been traditional. So I hope that if anything, if people look to my story, they can say, oh, there's all paths in this business. It's not just one thing of you do this and then you get a manager and then you book this. It's like, no, guess what? Sometimes your life takes you to Kansas where your mom is, recovering from cancer. Sometimes your life takes you to Boston because the partner that you're with at that time is in a anesthesia program and you're supporting them. Like life happens, and you just have to find a way to nurture the art along the way.
For many people, their first introduction to you was Red Rocket. Kind of how familiar were you with sort of Sean Baker when that opportunity kind of arose for you?
My dear friend Sammy Kwan, who is actually in Sterling K. Brown's class at NYU, she and I have been friends for many years, and she is a producer on Red Rocket and also partners with Sean. So to the point that you were asking, I had seen Florida Project, but I hadn't seen any of his other films. And then when I ended up, when they asked me to audition for this role, and then when I ended up getting it, I of course just started watching everything I could. I watched Tangerine and Starlet and another small little film that he had done. There's still a couple that I haven't seen yet, but I got really excited, from watching those. I just love his aesthetic. I love his style. I love the heart that is in his films. And I was so excited to have this, experience, because I didn't know what it was going to be like. And it was certainly a wild ride.
You're one of like only two actors in this entire film. What was it that made them think that we want Lexi to be a professional actor, as opposed to someone that they might find on the street walking their dog, for example, which is that kind of traditional sort of Sean Baker kind of audition process that we hear about?
Yes. Brittany's story. I don't know exactly why I think because it was one of the larger roles. I think because the story is set off with Lexi and Mikey, I think they wanted to have a professional actor that they could, count on to set the tone of the entire kind of film. And not that a first-time actor couldn't have done that, but I think because it was one of the larger roles, one of the three bigger roles, they wanted that. But that said, I mean, Lonnie is a very large role, and that's Ethan, who they found in Beaumont or Texas City, and he's fantastic. So, I don't exactly know why they didn't go with someone in the town for Lexi, but I'm sure glad they didn't. I'm sure glad they found me.
What did you think of the script and the character of Lexi on the pages? I suppose as an actor, and kind of with your political science background, Lexi is a character that we maybe have seen quite a bit of, perhaps in the news, or have been kind of stereotyped in the past kind of 5 years in this sort of Trump era. What was your kind of multiple kind of takeaways, I guess?
I was charmed by her. I thought that she was written with a backbone, with opinions, with humor, with spirit, with fire, with tenacity, with intelligence. I really, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is great, and I that's the way I tried to approach it. And her being from a harder area, and maybe from a lower socioeconomic background, I really was trying very hard not to lean into that, and trying to just honor her life and her journey and her struggles in the most authentic way that I could, with integrity and heart. So I kind of feel like I mean, that said, I did watch a lot of, there's a great series on YouTube called like The Soft White Underbelly. And this man interviews people on Skid Row and in LA. And it is beautiful. It's such a beautiful series. And you see these people's stories, and, you're sitting there thinking, we're all just two decisions away from that. We all are. We all could be two decisions away from ending up on Skid Row, and our lives would forever be changed. And so I think that line is really kind of a beautiful and haunting thing that we all navigate daily, of what keeps us from falling into that and not being able to find our way back out. So.
And I think with this, we speak about it so much just now, this kind of cost of living crisis, one paycheck away. There could be so many other Lexis out there, or people that find themselves, especially with American healthcare, the situation with I think it's with her mother as well, that, their meds get cut in half. It's all those little one or two decisions that we could see a lot more of those kind of characters out there, I think.
Absolutely. And I think Sean was, that was very important to him, to write that line in there, to highlight that a lot of people find their way into these worlds because of chronic pain. And, the opioid crisis in this country is something that, people are learning more about. But I think he really wanted to make it clear that it wasn't just, these, junkies, that these people found their way into this because they have pain, or, emotional or physical. And I think that's really beautiful.
How did you sort of prepare for this role, kind of physically and mentally, to take on the kind of character of Lexi? Because as we speak right now, even I remember hearing your voice for the first time post the movie. I was like, oh my God, I so believe that was an authentic accent. How do you prepare to transform into Lexi?
Well, thank you. I have a dear friend, Shonda Robbins, and she is from that area down there. So as soon as I got cast, she's from Port Arthur, Texas, which we filmed a few scenes in. And of course, it varies from area to area. I just was really mindful. I didn't want to do a generic Texas dialect. And so I had her basically read passages of books. She recommended a book to me, and, I kind of tried to get into the dialect through her. And it was really great, because she just has such an interesting dialect. And then I also, my Brenda, the woman who played my mom, I would say things to her and be like, does this sound right? And she's like, sounds right to me. And I'm like, okay. So I really was leaning on the people who lived in that area to kind of guide me, which was one of the gifts of casting people who are from the area. But also, I did as much research as I could on the porn industry and what it's like to be in the porn industry. There's porn documentaries. There's obviously tons of porn out there. And my friend Laura works with sex workers in Brazil. And so, I kind of found my way in through a variety of sources. So yeah, that's kind of, and then I found out I was going to be like naked. So I started doing some sit-ups.
What was sort of your turnaround from casting to filming that kind of gave you a lot of this time? Because obviously, I think sort of Simon Rex only got cast a couple of days before. Did you sort of have a more generous kind of grace period to prepare?
I did. I mean, it was all very surreal. I mean, I think it was such a gift to get it, find out that I was doing it a couple months before, because honestly, during COVID, everything felt so precarious that it almost seemed, is this really real? But if it is real, I probably should be studying. I probably should be researching. So I feel like I was given a luxury that Simon did not necessarily have. But that said, the man just won a freaking Indie Spirit Award. Oh my God. I think that, like I said, the COVID really, I mean, the fact that this movie is getting the attention that it is, I mean, it really is just a miracle that it was made. So I am just like, during the whole time, I was kind of wondering, well, I'm going to keep studying this. I'm going to go over some lines, but it's quite possible this won't even be made. I mean, there was a hurricane that came through and Sean was out scouting locations. And then there was a false positive COVID test when we were on the way down there and we had to turn around and go back. I mean, I was like, this isn't going to happen. Like, this isn't, no, this, whatever Red Rocket is, it's not happening. So honestly, the last year has just been such a treat to be like, oh my God, not only did it happen, but like people are really enjoying this or are moved by it, or at least it's causing some dialogue and, about stuff, in the country. And this is great. So
with kind of Simon's kind of late casting, how did that sort of impact you sort of for preparing for this role without kind of knowing who you'd be playing off and who this kind of relationship you might be having with them? Did that sort of impact you at all?
I mean, I trusted Simon. I mean, I trusted Sean. I trusted Sam that whoever was going to do it was going to be awesome. So I just kind of was like, I mean, even if it was cast locally, I was like, this is going to be they're going to find somebody who can knock this out, who can do it. And so I mean, I wasn't really, like I said, there was so much going on in the world that I honestly wasn't sitting in my apartment going, oh, I really, I wonder who, I was just kind of like, like I said, are we doing this? This is happening? Like, oh, we're pushing it. If you do, okay, we're good. I honestly am just kind of amazed. So when I found out Simon was doing it, I was like, oh, awesome. That guy's going to be great. This guy's going to be perfect. Cool. And I just am so grateful that when I showed up, like we just instantly were like, we shared a playful language with each other. And I think that helped that helped us both find our way into Lexi and Mikey and their history and their chemistry. And,
there's so many little touches of Lexi's kind of past throughout the film and what brought her to this moment. As you say, we're just all a couple of moments away from that. How much did you get to fill in some of those like moments for yourself about kind of Lexi's lost child, the drug use, the career in the sex industry, or did sort of Sean and sort of Chris Bergeaux's kind of script very much kind of guide you?
Both. I would say that their script, they put in moments, where like Mikey wakes up and sees the picture of her and the son, and his reaction kind of causes us to be like, oh, he's upset about this. This is something that is tender with him. Is this a child that happened when they were together? Like what why is this so tender? But I was able to come up with my own backstory, which I try to do for most of my characters about, little things. I like to make playlists for my characters of like what songs they like to listen to, and like, or songs that, would make Lexi, I thought would make Lexi like want to dance around in her underwear. Like, and so I tried to find those moments for myself. And then I just think it was so well written that I was able to kind of share that. And Sean was open to letting me play around in some ways and find it in the process, which was great.
What song could you say if we're like people are listening going like, all right, I need to find this woman's Spotify? What kind of songs did you have that you were like, that would get Lexi kind of dancing around in her underwear? What kind of ones came to mind?
Well, I'm trying to think. There were like a lot of 90s bops, like in the realm of NSYNC. There was a lot of 90s like hip hop, a lot of hip hop. Hooray, ho, hey, ho. I could see Lexi dancing around. And then some, I put on a lot of classic rock. I really felt like there's something about like, more than a feeling, I could just see like Lexi like singing in her kitchen, like as she's making eggs and smoking a cigarette, just singing some songs that were like anthemic classic rock songs. So yeah.
How did you and sort of Simon then kind of, when it was the both of you, how did you sort of work together to kind of bring this really deep and damaged relationship to life? Did you sort of have different discussions so you were kind of in sync about kind of that past, or did you sort of kind of come together with very similar ideas?
Well, it's interesting because, part of the fun of movies and plays is that people say things about other characters, and then it's up to you to decide whether you believe that that's true or not. And so Mikey in this film says so much about Lexi that it's just like, she's the reason I'm like here, and she fuck her, like. And so, as a character, as Lexi, I have to decide, is that something that I believe? Do I believe it went down that way? Oh, hell no, it did not go down that way. So like, I think we did not have the luxury of time to sit around a table and like really get into like, what were the meals we probably made for each other in LA after a big porn shoot? Like we didn't have that. We went through that first scene a couple of times the day before we shot it. And then really from there, I think it was almost an instinctual thing with Simon. I think we just kind of found, oh, this is the kind of like, I hate you, but I also want to fuck you, like chemistry that they that is necessary for that. Because otherwise you need to believe that they really love each other in some maybe broken, but beautiful and hard way, or else why would she let him back in? I mean, and not only she let him back in, she walks to him in the beginning. It's not like she's like, he walks in, she tells him to get off, and then she walks to him. So there is some kind of like animal draw. And I think we all either have had this experience in our lives, or we know friends who are like, why are you with it? And it's just something chemical that, is. And so I just feel so fortunate that Simon and I both kind of had that we were able to, and within that, we were able to kind of find their history and be like, oh, you know what? I bet they hated this, or I bet they loved that. And even some of the things he does, like, and I love the donut shop scene so much because you get a real sense of what they all were like together when it was working, like when they were happy, of like, don't eat that donut. Oh, give me some napkins, like it just kind of works in a weird way.
Yeah. And I suppose that's the joy of his character, is there's so many ones where you're like, he's being really generous. Like, as you say, maybe it's napkins, or get the donut holes if you want it. But then there's at the same time, it can also turn you going, then you'll just like immediately rush you on because like yous are no longer important in that moment. And it's like, you're like, my belly's full of donuts. Just give me a moment. I'm not going to eat it on the street.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of my favorite moments in that scene is where this is all Simon, where he opens the door. He's like, let me get the door. And then he walks in first. He says, let me get the door, as if he's holding it for them. And then he walks in. Oh my God. I mean, there's like not a better like metaphor for, and of course, when he crashes the bike that went into just this playful disregard of human property, or like personal property, because that's Lexi's bike, and he just crashes it into the wall because he's on a mission to do something else, so yeah, I think that there are several of those moments in there that are just delightful.
What is Simon like as an actor to kind of work alongside?
He is, I was really impressed with his ethic, with his willing attitude. He had just kind of this openness and was ready for anything. And given the precariousness of the situation, we had a very small crew, like 10 people. Everyone was masked when they weren't doing scenes. We were getting tested for COVID every 3 days. And of course, because of the nature of the world at that time and currently, there were limitations. And so there were things that would happen on the fly that'd be like, well, someone, who we cast, who's a local person, actually has to be at work at 5. They thought, they have to cover for someone. So like, we're not going to be able to shoot those scenes. So we have to do this. And Simon was just like, yeah, okay, let's do it. I mean, even if it required him, it wasn't something he had prepared the night before. He was just such a can-do spirit. And I think that just like created such an amazing environment for everyone. He was like a cheerleader for people. He would tell people good job. He just was so positive. And so I feel so grateful to have worked with him because, and I remember him saying to me early on, he said, Bree, this is a really rare thing that first of all, this is being filmed on film. This is like, we don't have like unlimited takes. We can't do 400 takes because it's digital. We have to do maybe 6 if we're lucky. and then go, like one of those takes has to work. And he's like, and the fact that Sean Baker is allowing us the opportunity to play and to improvise in some of these moments, like what a gift to be able to do that. And that is so trusting of him, and also just kind of speaks to his collaborative spirit, that he's like, I trust you. These are the given circumstances. Go. And, I would say that 20% of it was improvised and 80% was scripted. But Simon's wonderful. And I just talked to him yesterday, and he called me and just was like, I just wanted to, thank you, because, this award I got is just as much yours as it is mine. And, he's like, I feel like you really, you helped me up my game. And I feel like we both like found our way through this. And he's just, that's the kind of person he is. I mean, he's just so generous. And, it's because he has been in the business for a long time, and he's seen the fame, and, he's seen it all. And so he's approaching this with such a level-headed, playful groundedness that is just really inspiring. So I loved him.
There's little moments where when you read certain interviews with Simon, for example, and there's almost one or two moments where Mikey and Simon almost kind of cross tails a little bit, but Simon seems to just have that incredible self-reflection on where things have worked really hard for him in the past or have been a challenge, but Mikey just has none of that self-awareness. And I always seem to think that's the big thing between the two people, when if anyone ever thinks they're like, it's like, no, that one big thing is that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that Mikey is just completely like all ego, all narcissist. And that's not Simon at all. And I would say the energy and sometimes a little bit of the freneticism, or, that is definitely, Simon has that, but he is not Mikey. And that's why it's so beautiful, to see people like give him these awards, because it really is a transformation. It's not like he's, oh, that's so easy. No, the amount of energy that he had to sustain for this entire film, and that you like this person, you don't just hate him and like wish he was dead, it's beautiful. So I think it's very nuanced and skilled performance.
What's it like to play off like a character or an actor with such a high energy? Like no character will ever come close to that within the film. Is it difficult to sort of like, do you feel almost as an actor at times you've got to try and match it? Or is it very more difficult to sort of be like just confident and play it a bit more kind of relaxed, I guess would be maybe the word that comes to mind?
I think, the way, I mean, I really think Sean and Chris helped me out with that. I mean, just in that first scene in which Mikey is going off on that monologue and he's standing in the kitchen and he's just like, and then you just see Lexi just listening to it. And, they're focusing on Lexi. I mean, Mikey's almost just a blur in the background, just like vomiting this story up. And so I think because they wrote it that way, you get a sense that Mikey is used to filling the air and Lexi's used to like rolling her eyes and interjecting every once in a while. And I think, that's even how they wrote the breakup scene, like the breakup is very much like a silent kind of thing. So, but yeah, I think you just kind of let him be the whirling dervish and you just are who you are. And in some, it depends on the scene. In some scenes, it does work you up and, you have that fire too. But for the most of the time, you're just, depending on how you're reacting to what he's saying.
My favorite scene between the two of you, and it's such a powerful kind of moment, is when you're just you can sense the vulnerability in your character. Like you're pitching to Mikey, like we could formalize this relationship, like we could maybe get like just custody of this child back together. And just the fact that he blows you off in such a kind of cold and dismissive manner, like it's impossible not to have your heart break in that moment. And I think there's so many moments with Mikey where you can like, oh, I like him. Oh, but yeah, I'm not too sure, he's a bit suspect. But in that moment, there's no forgiveness in that moment. What was that moment like to play between the two of you?
That was a difficult scene because it really was something that we wanted to find. What is it in Lexi that chooses that moment? Like she must feel like things are going pretty well. And she must feel like they are kind of becoming more of a couple. And, so there are very few parts where she lets down her guard that much. And I feel like, Sean just encouraged us to really find, wanted Mikey to be distracted. And also that's why he put that moment in with the kid in the earlier part there. You see he's upset about it. There's something about this child that triggers something within Mikey too. And so he doesn't want to even talk about it, and she's like, you haven't even asked about him. I mean, so like there's a lot that has not been said that is said in that scene. And I think his instant, like, kind of like, whatever, this isn't going to happen, is a defense mechanism. And she instantly is, crushed by like, well, I guess that's not an option. And I think you see the finality of that moment when he's leaving her in the end, of like, there goes maybe my chance to get my son back. He's walking out, and maybe we could have gotten to that point, but nope, it's done.
Another performer I'd love to talk about and kind of pay tribute to is your on-screen mother, Lil. The film, she was kind of played in the film by Brenda, is it Diaz? Is that correct?
Brenda Dice. Yeah, Brenda Dice.
She obviously sadly passed away kind of recently. What was your memories of working with her? Another kind of really incredible standout performance in this film.
Yeah, I have to say, doing all the research that I did, it wasn't until I showed up and I met Brenda and that I said, okay, like, who is the daughter of this woman? Who is the daughter of this character? And she just like was such a wonderful, kind person, and she lent herself so generously to this role. And it's not her. It's not, she's not just being herself. She's acting. She's saying lines. I think that is one of the things that people are like, well, these first timers are just being themselves. And I'm like, no, they're acting. Brit is not like June. I mean, maybe in some ways, but not in many. So Brenda just was so game and so open, and we had such a playful relationship. And I mean, most of my scenes are with her, and so we really bonded. And we spent so much time together, and I would study her to see how she was smoking, to see like maybe that's how Lexi smoked, or that maybe that's how, and see how she did things, or how she tilted her head or whatever. It's kind of, I was watching her and learning from her as a person, as an artist. And I really, we had a really, really good time together. And, I'm so sorry that she's gone. And we kept in touch after the movie, and we'd write each other letters. And so I have a few letters from her that are just these handwritten, beautiful notes. And I'm sad that she's gone.
Have you ever found that people have assumed that you were one of these kind of actors that were sort of just found in sort of Texas City when they've watched the film for the first time? Have they been surprised to discover where your kind of background at first?
Yes, I think so. I mean, in some ways, I think people have had experiences like you said you had, where, when I was in Telluride and people had seen the movie, and then we did a panel, and people came up to me after and were like, when you open your mouth, I was like, what? Wait, hold on. Like, I really thought you were a former porn star. And I was like, well, great. Thank you. My work is done. So that always like really tickles me when people think that, I was from the area, because to me, it's like the highest compliment you can get as an actor is like, well, that's what I wanted to do. Like, I think I would have been more upset. It's like, well, I knew you weren't from there. I'd be like, damn it. Like, I really messed up. Like, so to me, it's a very high compliment when people find out that, I trained and that I've done mostly theater. And I think people are like, what?
You mentioned, obviously, you studied like the smoking, for example. Is that something else you had to kind of take up for the film? Because it is like relentless. Like you talk about like Mikey and your mother, like the real relationship you have in that film is with the cigarette.
Oh my God, yes. I actually... I have a friend who's a former smoker, and we would go out to the park and he would give me smoking lessons. I'm asthmatic. So like I grew up with inhalers and like nebulizer treatments, so like I of course I've smoked some cigarettes over the years, but nothing that I felt like, I mean, and I just wanted it to be, and I remember one of the best advice he gave me, because he kept telling me that I was like taking too many drags. He's like, or you're ashing too much. He's like, you're ashing too much. I kept doing this like all the time. And he was like, let the cigarette smoke itself. Let the cigarette smoke. And I was like, oh, it's like, let it, you know. So it was something I had to learn. I didn't, and I definitely feel like through the course of filming, and I learned a lot. And of course I watched Brenda, but yeah, I went to parks and just smoked. Like I ordered herbal cigarettes off of Amazon and was just like smoking in the park. And people were like, oh my God, Brayden, knew you were a smoker. I'm like, I'm not. I just, I'm trying to figure out how to make it look complete. Because that's one of my biggest pet peeves in watching films is like, first of all, when like somebody's drinking out of a cup and there's no liquid in it, I hate that. Why? Just put liquid in it. What are you doing? And then when people are smoking and you're like, oh, you're not a smoker. Like, I didn't want that. I didn't want it to look like, oh, that's an asthmatic.
So, and have you managed to kick the habit since, or was that a challenge after such an intense period?
Yeah, I'm back on the inhalers now. Not on the, I do have a pack. I saved a pack of the cigarettes from the shoot that she smoked, the Mavericks. That found its way into her waistband for most of the film, but I do have a pack of those. But yeah, I haven't really gone near them since then.
It might be something that I'm not too sure if you're familiar with as like an American, but like there's this brilliant British documentarian called sort of Louis Theroux, and one of the things when I was watching kind of the film was that real documentary feel, and kind of with Louis Theroux, he's had these documentaries over the years, from like Weird Weekends, where he follows sort of like subgroups in America, or looks at sort of like former porn actors or people dealing with sort of the opioid addiction. With this film, as much as it is a drama and comedy, it does feel like a snapshot of a type of reality, and that you believe everyone in this film's story and how they got there. None of them feels kind of fake. What did you kind of make of that kind of almost documentary like feel that the film sort of captures?
I think that was Sean's goal, is to kind of create a fictionalized story in a world that exists, in a world, an area of the country that maybe is not quite seen often in film. And, I think that was a big compliment from someone who went to the Memphis Film Fest, who said, who stood up afterwards and said, this is where I grew up. I mean, this is a community like I grew up in, and I never see this on film. This is something that seems really rare. That said, it's not intended to be a documentary, and by any means, but Sean did interview many, like people in the porn industry to make it so that it was accurate. And, I was interviewed by Asa Akira, an amazing porn actor. And she said that was one of the things she loved about the film, is that it felt very authentic, and that she knows Lexi's, she knows Lexi's in the business. She knows Mikey's. And so, and the terminology, the homeless suitcase pimp, that's a very derogatory term in the porn industry. It's very fueled and heated, and so like Sean, that was important to Sean. And I think he also just wanted to show people in this community, and which is why he cast people in the area who work in the area and live in the area, because he wanted to say, this is a snapshot, even though it's fictional, but this is lives that are happening in this country.
What was your kind of experience like shooting in sort of Texas City and Galveston, and what was kind of their reaction of this kind of town towards the cast and crew coming in? Because I suppose you were shooting in the height of COVID, and was there sort of like, oh, here comes Hollywood coming into our town? Was there sort of any sort of like kind of reactions like that?
I would say a few, but because, like I said, we had a 10-person crew, I mean, it was not Hollywood at all. I mean, I think people thought, for the most part, we were a student film, because we were using really beautiful camera equipment, and certainly it was very professional, but it was so minimal scale that, we of course we had to like rent out places, in the donut shop, the donut hole, if we rented that out from a family, and so there are certain places, locales, that we did kind of come in and we're like, here we are. And I don't really know. Everyone seemed very supportive and open. I know that the scene in the parking lot where Mikey gets punched, like there were a couple of takes where people were driving by that like actually thought that was happening. We're like, yeah, get him, But I think for the most part, it didn't really, at least for my knowledge, it didn't upset the kind of feeling in the town. I think people just kind of like, oh, what are they doing over there? Cool. It just was, everyone was very open and encouraging and supportive of it. So, I mean, down to the point where we even were chasing a cop around to get the footage of me talking about Lonnie, and because Sean really wanted to use a cop car, so we like got in a car and we're trying to find cops, and I'm like, this is wild.
With it being like so many of like the local residents are kind of involved in the film, and you being one of the kind of the few professionals, did sort of they look up to you or ask for any advice from you, or do they almost have that kind of natural confidence and cockiness that can sometimes be with, I've found myself in a kind of big picture and all that sort of stuff? How was there a sort of dynamic like that between you and the locals involved?
I would definitely say confidence. I wouldn't say cockiness, but I would say confidence, because I just feel like one of the things that was most impressive to me, working with Brittany and Ethan and Brenda, is their openness to improvising. And that is hard for an actor. I mean, that's hard for somebody who is like a skilled actor to improvise, and then taking someone who's never really acted before and putting them in a scene and saying, okay, here are the given circumstances, just say whatever. And one of my favorite parts in the film is where Brittany's outside of the door as June and is like, okay, you have 30 seconds. And she's like 30, 29 or whatever. She's like 3. And then she like goes in. I would say they were just I was so impressed. They were natural. They weren't in their heads, like a lot of times working with actors, you are working with people who are like, well, I just feel like my character wouldn't say that. Like, I'm having a really hard time, like really understanding why, because of where she's come from. Like there's none of that. They were just like, what are we doing? Oh, okay. So I just need to come in there and say that. And then, that's what we're all trying to do as actors anyway. That's what the training is all for. You just forget the training, fuck the training, just live naturally in the moment. And so I feel like these beautiful humans were able to just come and live naturally in a moment. And I learned so much from them as an artist. I mean, it was an absolute gift to work with them. And I feel like what I learned from them is like, oh, right, you just go in and you say the lines and you mean it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You've spoken about it. The film was obviously shot on 16mm. Did that take some adapting for you as an actor to be filming in front of something where it's a rare commodity, as you mentioned, you might get 6 takes if you're lucky. Did that sort of impact you as an actor and take getting used to after we've become so used to shooting on digital?
I mean, to be honest, I have not had a ton of film experience. So I didn't really, I wasn't thinking about it hyper a lot. I just kind of I knew it was a cool medium, but I don't feel like I felt a certain amount of pressure. I just really wanted to, be as honest as I could in the takes that we were doing. And I tried to shake it up in each take to make it a little bit different so that Sean had more to work with in the editing room. And, it just really depended on what he needed to tell the story. But I haven't done a ton. So this didn't feel particularly like, oh my God, it was so different than working on Shutter Island, because on Shutter Island, I was, I had such a minor role that I don't feel like I was, too aware of the cameras and stuff. So.
And what is Baker like as a director with like his actors and on set?
He is, like I mentioned before, he's an absolute collaborator. He is like open to ideas. He's always listening to what, crew, camera, actors, producers are thinking. He's open to ideas. He's very well prepared. He's such a brilliant editor that he is like editing as he goes. You can just like see his mind kind of like, he's like, well, if I do that, then I can't cut to this. And this is what I'm going to need here. And I'm going to do a pickup shot here. Like he's brilliant. It was watching brilliance at work. To me, it was really special because I feel like watching him work, I learned so much about film and filmmaking and storytelling. So yeah, he's wonderful. He's a wonderful director.
He seems like a real champion of yourself, as I've seen him post on Twitter a few times. Like he was like really happy for you. I think you maybe like signed with like an agency or something recently on Twitter, and you just saw him like post like, "You go, girl!" Like it just seemed like there was a real connection between the two of you.
Yeah, Sean and I we had fun together, and I think he just was so encouraging of me and like of what I was trying to find with Lexi. And I think he knew that I was taking it very seriously, and he knew what I was trying to bring. And I think he was just trying to nurture that. And we had a really good time, and I would bring things being like, I really feel like I need the big stripes cup in this scene. Like, I really feel like that is something that's very important to her, and he's like, yes, I think so too. Where's the big stripes cup? We got to get a big stripes cup to set, it's like, so he was very open, and I appreciated that. And he also was just so, the intimate scenes, we talked about them very carefully before we filmed them. And he was showing me kind of how things were looking, like, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're not seeing, this is, and I really respect him as an artist and his vision. And I really am so thankful that our paths have crossed.
I love that red stripes cup. Like, I'm surprised they've not made some as like part of like the promotional activities. Not just sending out donuts, but like, why is not people like getting them sent through the door?
No, the big stripes. I know. Well, and that was like one of the things I really wanted. And, Simon and I found that in that scene where he's leaving, that like he takes it, and it is like, it's almost as if he's taken, a diamond necklace that belonged to her grandmother. Like, that's what I wanted it to be like. Oh no, that is not yours. Like, you cannot take the big stripes cup. So yeah, that became like my personal favorite prop of the movie.
I'm curious, like, was this like obviously it's a real house, but was this one like you'd kind of rented and designed yourselves, or did you just kind of step into someone else's like kind of pre-established home?
It belonged to a man who is no longer with us, and they loved the look of the place and the proximity to the refineries. That was very important to Sean, that he wanted the backyard for, like when we're standing at the fence, or when Mikey's like worried at the fence, he wanted this ominous smokestacks of power and money, like just kind of billowing. That was very important to him. So I know the proximity of the house was very important, but also the interior. A lot of it was theirs, the furniture was his, but Stefanik, who was in charge of scenes and sets, really, every little tchotchke in the kitchen, and she made Lexi's room with like the lotion and the hot bubble gum, and she kissed the mirror, like the most beautiful, and some of those are like echoed in Strawberry's room as well. She wanted to kind of have a mirror of the two of them. And there's a lot of parallels between Lexi and Strawberry. And so, but she did such an amazing job that it looks like as if we just came into this house, but we definitely changed some things and moved some things around, and, but a lot of the furniture was his.
When did you get to see the film for the first time, and what was your reaction?
Oh my God. It was about, I would say a couple days before we went to Cannes. Simon and I were like, we have got to see this before. We do not want to be watching this for the first time with 3,000 French people in the freaking French Riviera, like with Spike Lee and Maggie Gyllenhaal. Like, no. So A24 got us a screening room here in New York, and Simon and I watched it together. We went in and we were like, okay, like, you sit there, you'll sit one seat across and I'll sit here, so we can still touch each other. But like, we want to be like in our own space. Cause as an actor, I had never had this large of a role in a film. And I was fully prepared to be like, okay, I'm just going to be watching this for the first time going, oh, that feels false. No, what did you do that for? Bree, that doesn't, why? And you're like, I was kind of prepared for that. But honestly, I have to say, like, Sean's storytelling was just so good. I was just, after the first like 5 minutes, I was just kind of like in it. And I remember we got done watching it and we were all like teary, and we stood up and we were hugging, and we were looking at each other, and we both were like, I think this is a really, really good movie. I think this is a really good film. I'm so proud of this. I can't believe in the middle of COVID, we pulled this off. Like, everything that went into this, we did it. We all did it, So like, there was that moment that I was so happy to have, so that when I was on the red carpet at Cannes, I could just like be on the red carpet at Cannes and know that I was going to be excited to share this with these people, because I was proud of it.
What was your Cannes experience like? Did you have sort of the anxiety that the French were going to come after you, or what was your experience like?
No, I obviously have nothing to compare it to, because it's such like a surreal and otherworldly experience that I honestly, I had to be like sewn into my dress on the way to the red carpet. My zipper wasn't working. So I feel like that kind of just like took all of my like, oh, I don't know, I hope they like it. I was kind of like, will I be walking up naked on the stairs, or will my dress be working? So I feel like I was just kind of open to the experience. And I feel so grateful that I was able to really, I really was soaking it all in. I was feeling the sun on my face. I was hearing them play Bruce Springsteen. I was hearing, I really, every moment I really tried to just like savor. And I remember seeing Spike Lee stand up after the show and was clapping and was just like, that was awesome. And like giving us high fives on the way out. And then going to this rooftop, this beautiful terrace overlooking the French Riviera. And then, just like filled with so much joy. And then at night, as the sun was setting, it was Bastille Day. So all of these freaking like fireworks start going off. And I'm just crying, being like, this is a moment in my life. Like, there are many moments that are not this. There are moments that are suffering. There are moments that are hard. There's so much going on in the world. But right now, this moment is pretty fucking special. And so I felt like I didn't take a second of it for granted. Every croissant, every freaking, everything I had, every rosé, champagne, I savored it. It was really special.
Has it been great to see the film continues to kind of roll out across the world? What's it been like for you to kind of see the kind of growing reaction and positive praise for the film and yourself? I mean, I even watched, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but I was watching this YouTube channel that I like called like Red Letter Media, and they were just like talking through the film, and they were like, and one of the best actors in the film is this Bree woman, she's fantastic. And there's so much, like every day there seems to be like a new review or article or comment about it. What's it like been to kind of just ride that wave for so long?
I mean, last year was so, like I said, because it's something that I'm really proud of, and because I really, really love everyone who's involved in it. Last year just felt so joyous because I got to see Simon again. I got to see Britt. I got to see Susie. We got to get all dressed up. We got to share it with this audience. We got to, and one of the coolest experiences was sharing it in Houston, and sharing it, and with the people who were able to come up from, where we filmed. And, I felt like I was fangirling, like, oh my God, it's you're the one with the gun, and you get tell him to leave. And oh my God. And you were the one who's interviewing him at the beginning. Oh my God, I'm such a fan, and like, they hadn't even seen the film yet. So they had no idea who I was. But it really has been such a treat. And I know that it's divisive, and I know it's triggering, and I know there are, themes that people, are taking issue with. And to me, that's the sign of a good film. It's creating dialogue. And I don't think Sean Baker in any way is trying to highlight or maybe try to glamorize or say certain things. I think he's trying to show something that happens in our country or everywhere. And so to me, that's been part of the fun, is hearing different people's opinions, good and bad, and different people's thoughts, and, what is the ending about? And, and I love getting messages, on Instagram and, Facebook from people who are like, somebody in India is like, I just saw the film. I loved it. You were wonderful, and that just makes me so happy that it's reaching, being a theater artist, you really are only, unless it's filmed for some reason, which rarely is, although it's becoming more popular, but, there's only a certain amount of people that can see you do what you do. They come, if they're lucky, and when I was living in Kansas City, it was the people of Kansas City that were able to see me on stage doing Constellations, or A Christmas Carol, but like when you're in a film, it's so exciting that, someone in India is seeing it, someone in Colombia is seeing it, someone in France is writing me a note. And it really is, it feels really cool. It feels very special.
And I think, like, you make the point, like, people can have their different opinions and different interpretations of the film, like whether it's the ending, the themes, the characters, like you can really dive into it. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, like film is opening in multiplexes here in Scotland on Friday, and it's got like, sometimes you worry, you think, oh, a film like this is going to be on at like 10 o'clock at night, people aren't going to get a chance, but it's on like 5-6 screenings a day, so it's easy to go, you should go as like friends, or I'm going to bring a girlfriend along. And you can imagine that the conversations that people will have after Red Rocket about those things are more exciting than what people are going to talk about when they come out of Batman the previous week, of like, did you enjoy that? Yeah, it was good. Or it wasn't as good as X film, or what about that thing? Or like, it's such base level stuff, but you can really dive into it and get animated, excited, passionate either way about it. And that's what kind of going to the cinema is all about, I think.
I agree with you completely. And for some of that, to echo that, like going to these screenings this year and having talkbacks afterwards, like being able to like be with a group of people who just saw it and were like, holy crap, what was that? Was really fun, just to like people's immediate responses to it. And I think you're right. I love hearing people, people don't know it's me, and hearing people talk about it, when I'm around them, it's really fun.
The film was obviously distributed by sort of A24 in America. What were they kind of like to work with?
They are a lovely team over there. They are compassionate. They are concerned with, it's everyone's experience, which is very difficult because obviously they want to promote the film, but they also, like for my birthday, I got like a huge box of macaroons, and it was like, love your friends at A24. And I'm like, what the man, you guys are just awesome, and they care about things. They're passionate about what they do. There was not one person I met from A24 that I was like, oh, that's the dud of A24. Like, no, they're all wonderful humans who love film, and so to me, that was just such a treat to get to, because I haven't had a ton of experiences in film, to get to work with a company that values filmmaking so highly. It really was such a treat. So I think, I honestly was like, I just want to do all things with A24. I will wear every A24 sweatshirt. I just want to do all A24 things. They're just such a cool company. So I had a very good experience with them. And I think they seemed very proud of the film. And I really loved that. It kind of felt like we were kind of like the Bad News Bears. We were kind of like the Rugrats of the festivals because of the content of our film. And I think that was kind of fun for A24 to have that, because they kind of love that stuff, There's like these big sweeping, power of the dog. And then we're like, yeah, but what about Red Rocket?
I think it's one of those ones, like, we've interviewed so many people on this and no one's ever mentioned that they got macaroons before. So like, that is a first. Maybe you're really in the good book.
Well, I am grateful. They were delicious. They were delicious.
We spoke about it earlier, like Simon was lucky at the weekend. He won a reward at the Independent kind of Spirit Awards. Was it one of those ones do you feel that the film's been overlooked by sort of the award season? As you mentioned, like, there's some great films, The Power of the Dogs, etc. But there's the scrappy film, Red Rocket, that people, when you watch it, everyone has that conversation like, Simon should get an award, like that person should get an award, that cinematography, like there's so many conversations that people had. Do you see the film's been kind of overlooked, or is that kind of always expected with this sort of like kind of scrappy sort of film that, oh, well, you get the really good critics praise and people love it, but we're going to give attention elsewhere?
I think yes. I was disappointed because I think it would have been really fun to have Red Rocket in the mix in any category, just because I think it's a beautiful, well-made film with incredible performances, and especially Simon Rex. So, will I say that I was completely surprised and shocked? No. And I almost just think it's cooler to have the indie film with like the indie spirit cred. with Susie getting nominated. I mean, her first big role in the business, and she gets nominated for an Indie Spirit. Simon Rex, an incredible performance. So yeah, I mean, I would say I was a little like, well, I guess that seems predictable and on brand. That the Rugrat film that is about a former porn star doesn't make it into the Oscar mix. Oh, shocking. But it would have been cool. And, Willem Dafoe was nominated for the Florida Project. And so there definitely has been some attention from awards before. So I was bummed largely because I just think Simon's performance is one of the best in 2021. I realize I am completely biased because I am in the film, but I just think his performance is nuanced and magnetic and just gorgeous. So I was sad that he didn't get that, but I'm freaking thrilled that he got an Indie Spirit Award. And to me, I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's great. So
what's kind of coming up next for yourself, Bree?
Well, I am going to be on a limited series on Peacock called The Innocent, and I have a guest starring role on that. That is coming up in the next few months. I'm going down to Atlanta to film that. And then other than that, I'm auditioning. I'm in the hustle, back in the hustle. And fortunately now, for the first time in many years, I have an incredible team at Anonymous Content who are knocking on all the doors and getting me some really good opportunities. And I am just thrilled to have them, Sheer and Carolyn, on my side. And I'm really looking forward to what's next. And I'm hoping that there will be lots more film for me so that I can learn more about the medium. I've been bitten by the film bug, and now I just want to do more to learn more.
Where's the kind of best place to keep up to date with sort of any news or upcoming projects?
Probably Instagram. That's what I'm on the most is Instagram. I don't have Snapchat, Twitter. I kind of just focus. I love taking photos. That's just has been a passion of mine for many years. And especially during COVID, I kind of started this ritual of, taking a picture of my coffee in the morning and putting it with a song is kind of just a way of marking the days during COVID and being like, oh, look, I woke up again today. And like, this is another day. And I've kind of continued it because it has become kind of a morning meditation for me. And so yeah, I love taking photos. So I'm on Instagram mainly.
That's another one where we'll need to get like a Spotify playlist assembled of like all your morning coffee ones.
Oh my God, yes. I would love that.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. As I said, I saw the film in October and I've been desperate to talk about it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. And I hope Scotland likes it.